why it matters. Why it matters to me, this is all about our kids, because they are our future. In our Aboriginal community, they are our future. The Winangay approach means Aboriginal people will be listened to and be equal in the process, so kids, Aboriginal carers and families can say what they need. Because I believe that we have to have our say, and we've got to listen to our kids. This quilt, as we said, when Julie came to my house, we had about 30 kids. It turns up all the time when Julie comes around because she brings a lot of lollies for them. And this is they all come to see Aunty Julie. So the kids want to have their say. They want to say, tell people, get it out there what they have to say. So we got down, we gave them textures and a piece of calico, and everyone had a say. Some said, I want my niece brought home. We want to stop the tears that's flowing in our communities of our elders. We want the joy back into their lives, into our communities. Stop the tears and stop taking our children. And one little boy, he was only about, a baby was only about 1 week old. His little brother put his hand and drew it. And he said, don't take my brother. And so this quilt has been around many conferences. Sorry, we didn't pick it up today to bring it to show you. But the kids have their say. This is why we was inspired to do this, wasn't it? So the kids can say what they want and how they feel. The main thing is stop the tears, stop the stealing of our kids.
We hadn't realised when we set it up, but as the messages started to be, we were going to a big conference in Canberra, and they wanted to have a say, and it's the Child Aware Conference, so we felt it was only appropriate that kids, we couldn't take them with us. The next best thing was to take their voices. So that's kind of where it came from. But we hadn't realised at the time that all 30 children either had a relative or someone they knew well in the community who was no longer in the community, who'd been removed. And so quite unexpectedly the messages came out and they were really powerful. Yes, really powerful.
Hear the messages, not just the words. Kids participate when they feel valued and believe their voice will be heard and make a difference. Sometimes we hear a message, but we don't hear what the word's saying, what that message is saying to us. We've got to listen. Very careful to the words that has been spoken. Listen to kids, give them confidence, control and hope. Since our Kids Say cards came out, this is what we heard. Yeah. What the kids wanted. We listened. We sat down and we listened. And you know, the kids can tell us. They're not going to tell us if you don't sit and listen. Take time out. This is what we've done. How they feel, who they miss, who they want to be with. It helps the healing for them, as it is our responsibility as workers, families and communities. In my community there's a lot of children. I've seen people taken, young babies trapped out of their mother's arms. And I was on a child myself, and that hurt's still here. It's still, my heart is still broken for my kid, for the families when they are taken. And I just don't know how I been taken, but it still hurts. The memories are still there. The scars are still there. They will always be there. But the only way we can help now is to listen to our kids, what they've got to say.
We know, and this has been alluded to throughout the day, a significant amount of research indicates that children and young people involved in the child protection system feel they are pawns in big people's games and they have little say in what happens to them. That's what they feel. We've alluded to that consistently throughout the day. We also know that 33% of kids in care are Aboriginal. Another significant proportion are kids from the cult backgrounds. We need resources which are culturally strong and meet the needs of kids and parents with low literacy, which are trauma-informed and acknowledge kids' grief and loss. The cards do all of that. So we have piloted these for cold kids, you'll hear from the research, and they work just as well with cold, Aboriginal and mainstream kids. Why do we care about what kids say? Why do we care? Because it increases their self-esteem, increases their self-determination, they have control over their own lives, a capacity to make decisions, and it improves the effectiveness of all our intervention programs. We've heard that a lot today. And this is what happens. Huge improvements in placement situations, in permanency stability, better maintenance of connections and development of strong cultural identity. They have greater self-control. They have improved self-esteem. It contributes to a better, safer child protection system. I loved Kate's opening remarks when she said, it is usually appropriate to ask a kid what I, as always do with every conversation I start with families or children, what do people like me do that works? What do I need to do more of? What do I need to do less of? Kids have taught me. I've got a few of those master's degrees. I even got one from Sydney Uni. It's pretty flash, that place. But you know, the best teachers, the kids, because you ask them. We've even made a card. What advice would you give to a worker? So I say to kids, what advice? What have I got to know about working with you so I can work with you right way? I don't want to work with you wrong way. I want to work with you right way. Can you tell me? Kids tell you. Ask them. Thanks, Kate, because it's exactly what we need to do. It was a great start to the day. And obviously, these cards and everything we do has been informed by the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child. Particularly Article 12, children have a right to say what they think should happen when adults are making decisions that affect them and to have their opinions taken into account. I actually believe children have a right to guide and lead me, and me to be attuned and responsive to that.
Whatever we do and whatever we've tried to do, we've begun by looking at, as Paula said, the national and international research. We've then done some development work, usually with a reference group or an Aboriginal reference group, usually with a whole lot of academics involved somewhere along the line as well, because evidence-based work is really important to us, and we want to produce the best possible tools that we can. So we started this by talking to kids, as Susie has an endless supply in Tinga for all sorts of opportunities to talk to them. They love being involved in conversations and chatting about things and telling us how they think things should be, and looking at draft resources and other things and giving us their feedback on that as well, good, bad and ugly. But at the end of the process of development and of, as Paula said, consulting with a whole lot of departmental people as well to make sure we had met the standards and met their needs within the department, because we wanted them to be versatile, and at that stage we hadn't allowed for the fact that health and schools and other people were going to get extremely interested in them as well. But we got Dr. Rebecca Grace, who is at Macquarie University, and she's the Vice-Chancellor's Innovative Fellow for Research. So she does a whole lot of work.
Pretty brainy, isn't she? She's pretty brainy.
She's pretty brainy, but she's also awfully easy, like Morag, to actually talk to. So she very kindly said, I would love to do some research on these cards. And the research we wanted to do was to actually talk to kids about, more generally, about what they thought of the cards before we started to use them. So Rebecca very kindly did some research for us, looking at an Aboriginal group, a called group, and a mainstream group. They said that the cards helped them remind me how I feel, that the people look like real people, which, given that they're cartoons, is kind of cute. I can focus on the pictures and the words on the cards and not be shamed about what I'm saying. And I think that's that notion of having something to be able to talk to and be involved with rather than just talking. Because the pictures are deliberately designed to be engaging, kids will just start telling you stories with them very quickly, which can be good and bad. There was a lot of people responded to the fact that they felt they were more confident in talking about stuff if they had the cards there, and that it was easier to actually do that. When they couldn't think about the words, the pictures actually really worked for them, and a lot of them said that they didn't need words at all, the pictures worked. But it's awful helpful if you're a worker, if you've got some questions and wording sitting there that you can use, and some of the older kids were really happy to read them. And they liked the questions that were being asked. They liked to talk about the feelings, and that they felt that people were able to ask questions that they didn't normally ask them. So they got consulted more around all sorts of issues. A lot of them said they didn't feel confident talking themselves normally, but with the cards to tell stories it was much easier. They liked having choices. They felt they were funny and had a good giggle on quite a few of them. And that you could think out of the box with the card, but you could have all your own ideas come out of the box. So, yeah, that was great from my point of view. It's important because a lot of people in the world don't like talking about how they feel, and they might get really upset, and the cards would help them to talk about it. And then finally, we don't talk about these things like what choices we can make or our culture or even our rules. She noted that it actually helped a lot for kids to have something external to focus on and talk to, and it made it easier for a lot of them to talk. It took the pressure off eye contact, and they felt more comfortable with a card in their hand. They liked having conversations, but they liked having a card better actually help them and get them started. They felt that they sometimes needed a prompt beyond the cards, so they did add a few more words and bits and pieces as they were going. Number 3 was really tricky for us. The ease with which conversations ran deep. We were basically doing a participation study, having a look at, did kids like them? There's no point having a participation resource when kids haven't participated in evaluating it and in designing it. So we were really keen to do that. But what they found was the kids weren't interested in just telling us if they liked the pictures or not. They wanted to tell the story that went with the card. And so they started to actually talk about all sorts of things. Rebecca's a very skilled person, and that worked extremely well. She's not a standard sort of approach to research, and she's very easy to chat to and very ethical in the way she works. But she found that kids were starting to get into some deep stuff, and she had to make sure that she wasn't opening up cans of worms. In one case, a little boy, one of the cards talks about what do you miss, and his mum had passed away some months earlier, and when he was looking at the card, he started to cry, and obviously we, followed that up and got lots of support and things for him. But he said it was the first time he'd cried since his mum had died, and it's the first time anybody had actually sat down and talked to him about that. So while she felt there were challenges, and she recommended that we only give the cards in training so that we make sure we cover some of those ethical issues, she actually felt they were incredibly powerful in doing all sorts of work. And finally, there was an important lesson learnt in adults being prepared to actually stop and hear what the kids have to say. And she had some other researchers helping her in the research, and that was their feedback as well.
The children have to feel physically, emotionally and culturally safe. They have a right to be heard, to be listened to. They need to build understandings based on children's understanding. They need to be given choice and control. Relationships is key. We've talked about that a lot today. And relationships heal. They help children to feel connected and belong. Kids need to feel respected, valued, strong in identity and strong in culture. It builds hope and resilience and skills.
These are based on the international trauma principles, as you probably recognise. One of the things that the Winangay does is we don't use jawbreakers, as Aunty Susie says. We've got to have it in plain English. So you'll see where they came from, but they're expressed in a way that kids and families that we're working with can actually understand what is it that can help with trauma.
And across all our resources, everything we do is informed by our scope model, about building relationships, doing the respect, talking in plain English, listening, understanding the impact of trauma, intergenerational trauma, and applying those trauma-informed principles. Here's some examples.
If there's none on your table, find a table nearby that's got
Just
some.
get up and move around, because we're going to ask you to think, what do you think about the cards?
Kate warned you we were participatory.
So over here, we've got cards like community. We've got cards like who do you miss? What do you miss? Where would you like to live? What are you good at? What would you like to get better at? What choices do you want? I'm going to draw your attention to one of my favourites, and it's about this one. How do you celebrate in your family? What do you celebrate, and who do you celebrate with? This is a card I use very often when I'm in the child protection unit. We're tearing our hair out. This child can't go home. We're trying to find somewhere for the kid to go. It seems like an odd card to use. But when kids tell me who comes round for the birthday party, who comes round for Christmas, who brings them Easter eggs, usually they're able to tell me some of the significant people in their lives who are important to them, who care about them and love them, who might be a resource for us. So it seems like an odd card, but it's a great card and it covers loads of strengths. If kids are telling me they never celebrate, they don't have birthdays, they didn't get Christmas this year, it's an indication of just how tough things are for kids. Okay? So we're going to get you to talk about the cards that you like in a moment. And for the people who are tuning in from outside, we've got cards up here that talk about strengths, who you're missing, choices.
I chose the card culture. How do you keep your culture strong? And I really, really love it that it's also, it can relate to cowed kids as well. So thank you.
Our respect to you.
Thank you.
All cowed kids and communities, absolutely.
I chose what advice would you give to a worker? What do you want them to know? Because I like the kids to tell me what's happening. I don't live their life.
Absolutely. Okay. What have you got?
Well, I had originally chosen the Celebrate card for the reasons,
Great minds.
I actually really liked that you have two different cards that could be similar. You've got a C card, which is about do you get to see the people that are important to you, but then you also have the who to visit card, and I'm quite interested in that, in thinking about the differences between those and the different types of answers you'd get.
Okay, anyone else?
Paula, we have someone over here.
Great.
Yeah, go on, take it away.
So I chose the family card. So what is it like living in this house? Who is in your family? And what is it like living with this family? Because I think it's relevant not just to children when we're working in the child protection scope, but also in out-of-home care and getting their experiences. And like we were talking about earlier, we're not in the house 24 hours a day, so it's really about gathering the child's experience and getting their perspective.
Thank you. Over here.
I feel overwhelmed with options, Paula, but the one that's right in front of me, if I just roll with that, is about decisions, and I really like that it's about thinking about the decisions that the child feels that they need to make, that the kids need to make, rather than maybe our decisions or maybe some of the adult thinking. So for them it might be about, getting their belongings from their house, or, getting their dog, or but really thinking about it from their perspective. I think that's really lovely.
Thank you. Over here. Oops. Thank you.
Mine wasn't really a reflection, more a question before someone at this table loses an eye. Where can we get more sets of these? Because I already looked on the web page and couldn't.
Okay, as you hear from Dr. Rebecca Grace, she's saying you've got to be trained. We're just going to have a deal with your organisation, do days training and CSCs. Does that work for you, fellas? We'll come out to your CSCs, we'll do some training with you. We're already having conversations with L&D about how we do that. We made a promise to kids. The kids made us promise that we wouldn't give these to workers without we did at least a day's training. Our Kids Say Workbook has got all to really the easy way to talk to kids, with the kids made us write as well. They practically dictated what we had to write in that book. And we made a promise to kids, and we keep our promises to kids. Is that reasonable? Thank you. Anyone got a card they want to share? Yeah. What are we sharing? This is your favourite card.
Who do you want to visit? Well, I was going to, we've got a few favourites, but, the one that I took notice of was, what do you like doing for fun? Because it kind of is going to focus on some positives when you've got some pretty hard things to talk about. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. Adults can't speak, but we ask kids to speak all the time.
Yeah, that's right. We all there's lots of fabulous ones, but we all really like the magic wand question. And I think that can help provide some clarity as well when we've lost casework direction and we think it's on us to figure out what needs to happen next. Maybe just asking them what would they do if they had a magic wand, or what would they like to change for somebody else. And then that will probably bring us the greatest clarity that we need.
Thank you.
My voice isn't very good, so I won't. Okay. No, I'm right. I have a funny voice, so it's probably best if I don't speak. But I like the culture one too. I like the pictures on it. And we were just talking about the routine one as well, because I think that's really inclusive. Yeah, that's all I have to say.
The routine one came straight out of the input from our fabulous casework specialist, who wanted a picture about what it looked like every day for kids in a house. That's great for getting an understanding of neglect. Catherine?
I really like the changes one, because kids' change can make everyone feel anxious or unsure, and there's so many changes going on. This is being about transparent about what will happen for them today, tomorrow, the next week and the next month, and I think that's a real challenge for us.
I chose the unsafe card. I love that because it is just so real. I just think it really depicts what it would feel like to be unsafe.
I chose community because I think probably many of us forget that for thousands and thousands of years, it was community that provided assistance to all children. And children need to remember that they're part of a community that can support them.
Over here.
Hi, I like the say and listen one. I think it's just very clear in just getting them to actually tell us what they want to tell us, to say, and who they would like for us to listen to, who wants to be heard. I think it's very poignant.
Thank you. Over here. Anyone got a card? Sorry.
Hi, I really love the advice for, there's a few advice cards and I really like those, particularly the ones for another kid, because I think that's a really good way to hear what's on a child's mind.
Absolutely, that's why we did it. Yep. Thank you.
There are a few similar cards to this one as well. I chose scared and upset, and I think more so because we're asking them what other people can do to help, because we make a lot of assumptions about what children need without actually asking them what they feel they need.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you.
The ones that we've put up on the PowerPoint there was the feelings card, and we talk about what do you do when you're having big feelings. Because it was a language everybody could relate to and they knew exactly what a big feeling was. So it opened up all sorts of conversation. Then we've talked a bit today about the fight-flight response. And so there's one that's called trauma actions, and talking to a kid about when something's going on for them, what do they generally do and how do they actually respond. Not assuming that it's always one or the other. They can talk about different situations for all of them. But also the question at the end of the card, what else do you do? Because sometimes kids will come up with other things they do when something's really scared them or upset them. So it just leaves that open. But it also starts to help them understand the fight, flight and what's going on. And then the last one was the continuum card, which has got the big red arrow going up it, which just depicts some of the hypervigilance and challenges that kids work in, and a little bit of some words for workers around trauma, and some of the questions to ask, because kids often don't have the language around this stuff or even necessarily the concepts. But we were surprised at how often when the picture was there they were able to talk about some of those feelings and some of those behaviours.
And when kids were able to tell us what grown-ups did that helped at that time, that's wonderful. We can share that with carers, with the parents, with other workers. They can teach us. They teach us all the time. Listen, because they can teach us.
And in the cards that you've chosen, you will have seen the reflection of those trauma-informed principles coming out. The sort of safety, the giving choice and options for kids, the relationship building, the cultural factors for identity along the way. I need to say, though, there are 44 cards plus some rating cards that go with it. You don't use all 44 at once. Ideally, if you've got a bit of an idea, you will have seen in that last slide, there's 3 kind of sets there. The first one was around situations. The first column was around situations where you might have an easy opening conversation with kids. What are their strengths? How do they celebrate? What's their community like? Things that can be opening when you're starting to build a relationship. The second set is more around decision making and actually getting their opinion on ideas. And then the last one, move into some of the difficult feeling stuff that they might want to talk about and go further with.
So we'd just like you to take a minute or so to think about what excites you about the cards, what challenges you about these, what might be the benefits, do you think, of using these cards, and when might you use them? can I ask this table a question? What excites you about the cards?
I was saying I really love that it gives us the opportunity to bring the child's voice to the conversation far more and to explore far more. My fear is, how do we make that voice the loudest voice in the room instead of the quietest voice in the room?
Yeah, that's a huge challenge, and thank you. Okay. What might challenge you about the cards?
I think a caseworker or a practitioner having confidence to bring them out and not, not feeling embarrassed about using them because they're such a great tool. And sometimes things like that, they get a bit, is this kid going to, like they're going to say they're too young for me or something like that. And I think it's more about practitioner worry than reality.
I think so. Okay.
You can actually just leave them lying around and see whether the kids respond to them.
Yeah. That's what I... Yeah.
And when we do select a few cards that we're hoping they might talk about, we put them out on the table too and let the kids pick which ones and what order they want to talk to them in.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, look, certainly in the child protection units, I often just kind of leave them on a table and I know kids are curious and they say, what are these, Paula? And I say, well, have a look. And before you know where you are, they're talking and it's all happening, you know what I mean? Especially when they've got these sparkly shoes on. All right, so what might be some of the benefits of using these cards?
I think particularly for some people who may not have had a lot to do with Aboriginal community, it might help to break down barriers with Aboriginal children.
Okay. When might we use the cards?
I'm just going to back up that last point and say the same for multicultural, because this, it's only recently that we have had mandatory cultural care planning for cowed kids, and we often get questions around, I'm working with a child from a different background, how am I meant to prepare them culturally? So here's a card. It's great.
Thank you so much. All right. When might we use the cards? Oh. Shout it out loud, shout it out proud.
All the time with kids. I think we were having a conversation about, and it kind of ties into what you were saying about teenagers. I feel like this would draw them in, and not to be like, oh, this might be a bit uncool, because I feel like it's not. They're going to move into that space of looking at them, because we did at this table. We loved them, and I was like, well, I'm 32, so I'm not going to be worrying about a 15-year-old. Yeah.
Yeah, I worry more that we don't give kids an opportunity to be heard. So if I make a fool of myself and they're not into them, well, but I've never worked with a kid who isn't.
And we're not saying it will work with every kid.
Absolutely.
We haven't found kids they don't work with yet, but I'm sure we will. But that's why you have a toolkit of different tools that you can use. So if this one doesn't appeal to them, then you try something else.
Yeah, and kind of we did this Kids Say Bookless, and this is about, how you build a relationship, how you have fun, how you keep it safe, keep it strong, how you do that with kids, how you talk to the parents about using these cards, how you talk with kids about how you're going to use this information and share it. They're really critical ethical questions that kids have a right to know and be heard about. That's absolutely critical.
I'd just like to say our kids, they don't like talking to anybody. They're strangers.
Yeah.
They sort of clam up. But the only way that when they seen the cards, they didn't know Rebecca Grace when she did come.
Yep.
They knew Jilly, but they was hesitant. They didn't want to speak. But then when she showed them the cards, it opened up. They just opened up to her, and they asked, and when she was asking them questions, they started to speak. But to them, they see a face that they don't understand. They know that you are from FACS. They'll say, oh, that's they dogs. We don't want to talk to them. This is their attitude. This is how they see us. Think, oh, yeah, they come to take me. But these cards has made a difference to a lot of our kids. There's no more fear there. They know you're there to help them and to listen.
Yeah. outcomes for kids when they're heard. What I know when I'm using these cards is I'm getting taught. Kids teach me. I'm hearing about their acts of resilience, their acts of resistance and courage. And they've in every conversation that I've had with a child using these resources has really inspired me to want to do more of this work. And made me a better at what I'm doing because they teach me. And one of the things that, I've learned more and more over the years, and as somebody said to me recently, one of the kids I'm working with in the unit, he said, "How old are you, Polly?" I said, "I'm 58. He said, "Oh my God, you're the eldest person I know." I said, "Yeah, that's right." And you know what? I got this old, and you know what I've just learned? I've learned that God gave me 2 ears and 1 mouth. And I've realised I've got to use these more than this. He said, "God, did it take you till you're 58 to learn that?" I said, "Yeah, because I'm stupid, but I'm learning." He said, "Good job, Paula." So there you go. So do the listening. They'll teach you to do the caring, and they'll teach you your job.
I always ask people. I went to the Power Museum on a journey with some elders. There were 6 of us. I met 3 ladies, elders from up the top, older than me. As we walked with Linda Burney, we walked. They said to me, "Stop, daughter." And I stopped. They said, "My daughter, you're going on a journey." And I thought I was going to go somewhere else. So your journey is working with kids. It's going to bring our kids home. And a lot of people's going to listen. And they tell me, and they tell me close my eyes when they're talking to me. When I opened my eyes, there was only 2 of them. The 3rd one disappeared. So I'm going to stand tonight. I'm going to give you the invitation to come on this journey with me, to help me bring our kids home to our community. I always extend this invitation because these elders invited me to this journey. I've taken up that with my colleagues. And they are journeying with me. So I'm extending this invitation. Come on this journey with me to help us bring our kids home. Or put them somewhere safe where they can be safe. Thank you.